Hello, and welcome to the BP MedTech Translator informational presentation. I am Stacy Gutowski, a Program Officer with the Blueprint MedTech program, and this presentation is designed to introduce you to the new BP MedTech Translator funding opportunities and answer any questions you may have about the application process. An overview of the Blueprint program is provided in our overview presentation, which will be posted to the MedTech site, so I won't spend too much time on the program background. The Blueprint MedTech program is an NIH incubator that aims to support innovators by accelerating the development of cutting-edge medical devices to diagnose and treat disorders of the nervous system. Our mission is to catalyze the translation of novel neurotechnologies from early-stage development to first-in-human clinical trials. Our goal is to accelerate patient access to groundbreaking, safe, and effective medical devices. We do this by providing support to sufficiently develop and de-risk technologies to the point where additional investments are warranted from industry partners, investors, and government. As previously mentioned, the criteria for entry is included in the overview presentation, but I would like to emphasize that applicants to the program must include novel medical device technologies that will advance upon current neurotechnology. The devices are expected to be first-of-its-kind technologies with unique and novel intended uses or to address new safety or regulatory questions. Devices may also pivot and refine existing technologies toward new intended use and in novel settings. We expect that most devices will follow the FDA de novo or PMA regulatory pathways. However, those that meet an existing 510(k) pathway may also be acceptable if they meet specific conditions. But again, we expect that most will fall under the novel de novo category, as the BP MedTech program is designed to support the transition of groundbreaking technologies for which other mechanisms of support likely do not exist. The MedTech program consists of two phases, development and translation. Relatively early-stage groundbreaking neurotechnologies that have at minimum shown proof of concept will enter the program in the development stage. Further developed devices that are ready for early feasibility testing will enter in the translational phase. All BP MedTech projects, regardless of their phase, are provided access to the MedTech resources. These resources are provided at no extra cost to the innovators to support device development and optimization. Resources are provided by NIH-funded incubator hubs and CROs. These include services for design prototyping and bench testing, business development, biocompatibility and animal studies, regulatory, compliance and quality, and clinical support. Assistance and advice from consultants and industry experts will also be provided. In this presentation, we will focus on funding opportunities for devices entering in the translational phase. Again, to learn more about our program structure and other phases of the program, please see our program overview presentation on our website. Currently, Blueprint MedTech offers funding for translation projects through two mechanisms, PAR 21315 and PAR 21282, with 282 being specifically for small businesses. The purpose of these funding opportunities are to support translational activities and clinical studies to advance the development of therapeutic and diagnostic devices for disorders that affect the nervous or neuromuscular systems. Activities supported by these mechanisms include implementation of clinical prototype devices, non-clinical safety and effectiveness testing, and design verification and validation activities. Additional activities include obtaining an investigational device exemption for a significant risk study or institutional review board approval for a non-significant risk study, as well as support for a subsequent clinical feasibility study. Projects must focus on a disorder that falls within the mission of the 14 participating NIH Blueprint Institutes and Centers. Devices within the scope of this program are expected to be very close to the final system and manufactured using very close to the same manufacturing process as the device to be marketed or studied in a larger clinical trial following the completion of this project, or have received pre-submission feedback from the FDA. All devices require early feasibility clinical data to inform the final device design or manufacturing processes. All applications to these mechanisms must include two phases. The first phase, referred to as the UG3 or U44 Phase 1 for the SBIR opportunity, supports non-clinical testing to obtain an IDE or IRB approval for a clinical study. The second phase supports a clinical feasibility study. All Translator projects must start in the first phase, and only those first-stage projects that have met specific criteria will transition to the second phase after NIH administrative review. The length of the phases depends on the maturity of the project and the type of funding mechanism being used. Specific limits for each mechanism are discussed in a subsequent slide. However, it's important to note that the total project period, including both phases, must not exceed 5 years for either mechanism. For example, if the first phase is 3 years, the second phase could not exceed 2 years. Projects for which only a clinical phase is proposed are outside of the scope of this funding opportunity. At minimum, projects are expected to enter having comprehensive supporting data based on bench, in vitro, and/or in vivo models representative of the intended patient population and indication. Proposals should identify one or more clinically meaningful device outcome measures based on input from key stakeholders, such as clinicians, patients, and caregivers, as well as supporting literature. Proposals should also have a compelling case for a successful IDE submission for an SR study or IRB approval for an NSR study. A pre-submission meeting with FDA is also encouraged. The first phase can last up to 4 years for the UG3 or up to 2 years for the U44 Phase 1. The purpose of this phase is to identify and conduct all non-clinical testing necessary to obtain approval to complete testing to support an IDE submission or to obtain IRB approval for an NSR clinical study. Design execution plans and go, no-go milestones for the second phase are also required. Please note that applicants who do not have sufficiently relevant feedback from the FDA regarding planned activities prior to application submission will be expected to do so as the first milestone of the award. Funding may be restricted until FDA feedback consistent with the success of the regulatory path to market and overall device development plan outlined in the grant application is received. An administrative review will be conducted by program staff with potential input by independent consultants to decide whether a first phase project will be transitioned into the second phase. Several factors are considered. Some items of particular note are successful achievement of the UG3 milestones, likelihood of success in clinical testing. For SR studies, documentation of approval of the IDE from the FDA, and IRB approvals. Once administrative approval is obtained, Translator projects will enter the second phase of the mechanism, known as UH3 or U44 Phase 2 for projects funded by the Small Business Opportunity. This phase can be supported for up to 4 years of funding for the UH3 or up to 3 years of funding for the U44 Phase 2. Again, the total time of funding for both phases together for either mechanism cannot exceed 5 years total. The purpose of this phase is to support clinical studies that provide information about the device function or final design that cannot be practically obtained through additional non-clinical assessments. Through this phase, we will support clinical studies that will likely lead to a marketing application, a larger clinical study that will lead to a marketing application, or use of the clinical experience to inform device design decisions. The use of the design control and quality systems processes to the degree specified by the FDA is required. Intermediate steps in the design control process, such as design reviews, design verification, design validation, and design transfer activities, and IDE submission should be included in the annual milestones. Because the degree to which design controls and quality systems processes are required by the FDA may vary substantially depending on the specific device, we encourage investigators to discuss these issues with the FDA and regulatory consultants prior to submitting an application. Quality system requirements should be considered at the IDE stage or design control stage when preparing device development activities. We strongly encourage applicants to consult with the NIH program staff when planning an application. Through these discussions, we can provide further guidance on program scope, goals, and developing appropriate milestones. When possible, applicants should contact program staff at least 12 weeks before a receipt date. Again, for a list of IC-specific requirements and contacts, please visit our IC and Contacts page. When completing the application, please ensure all required sections of the application are included. Be sure all attachments, the milestone plan, the neuroethics section of the Human Protections attachment, and clinical study protocol are included. Applications that do not include these items will be considered non-responsive. One section in particular that we would like to highlight is the resource checklist. In addition to providing funding, the Blueprint MedTech program supports grantees by providing commercialization, verification, and validation resources. Applications to the program must include a resource checklist that identifies which resources provided by Blueprint MedTech program will be utilized. Applicants are highly encouraged to indicate that these resources will be provided by the BP MedTech program by inserting a statement along the lines of, quote, "If selected for funding, we expect that the following resources will be made available to this project by the Blueprint MedTech program. Since the program will provide these resources at no cost, this application does not request any labor or budget associated with these resources," end quote. Be sure to also provide justification for why any resources are not being utilized in the current application. For a list of potential resources, please review the funding opportunity announcement or visit the Resources and Support Services page on our website. I would like to end the presentation with a reminder that MedTech is currently accepting applications for our Translator funding opportunities, PAR 21315 for all applicants, and PAR 21282 for small businesses. Please note that small businesses are also eligible to apply for PAR 21-15. The next application receipt date is October 20th, 2021. A letter of intent is recommended. Foreign components are allowed for the UG3-UH3 and may be allowed for U44. Please reach out to our team for further clarification. The application for this particular round will be reviewed by a panel convened by NINDS in February next year in preparation for Council in May 2022. The estimated release of Notice of Award is early next summer. This concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, please contact us at blueprint-medtech@nih.gov. Thank you.